What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Future Knight Eric here, and it has been a minute, but I thought I could update you all with a Kashtira first place OTS locals deck profile, and also just catch up just in general. Like I said, it's been a minute since my last upload, especially a deck profile. My last upload or my last video was chatting a little bit about becoming one of Aria's champions for AI Fest, as well as going to YCS Lille. This is obviously post YCS Lille, back home in South Africa, and I decided to take my newly purchased / picked up deck, Kashtira, and take it to locals and see how we could do. It was relatively small locals, it was only 4 rounds. I ended up going 3-1, but because of tiebreakers, I ended up playing the only undefeated in the 4th round, and I ended up coming out on top. My only loss was complete luck. I ended up drawing 2 talents, 2 ash and a unicorn going first. Special summon the unicorn to search and he impermed me, both talents dead. And then his turn, he was on dinos, he went misc, and unfortunately I couldn't interact meaningfully enough with my Ash Blossom to stop him from killing me. But that was my only loss. Otherwise, I did win against Ubal, still probably one of the best decks, even though Snake Eyes is currently the top pick with the new cards out of Rage of the Abyss. I managed to take that 2-0 against Ubal. Game 1 I shifted him, game 2 I sphere moded and even lead him. A little bit of spoilers for the side deck. Round 2 was against Dragon Link with all the new Metal Morph, I believe, cards, which was quite interesting. Shifter just wins that matchup pretty much automatically. And then round 3 was Dinos, and then round 4 was against my good mate Aiden. He was on Centurion, specifically the build that Pack took to the YCS Niagara, and I managed to take that 2-1. Not much else to say. I guess we can get into the deck profile. There's not much to explain either. There's a couple of things I'd like to explain. Specifically how to play, or how I've built the deck to play around cards like Nib and Evenly. And play around is obviously a term lightly used, because those cards are huge blowouts against this deck. Nib if you get greedy, and of course Evenly is just a blowout no matter what. But there is a way to keep playing, which I find super interesting against those kind of cards. Post side, I don't think anyone is main decking Evenlies. I don't think that's realistic. Nibiru is definitely a more favored pick for the main deck spots, but we'll get into it. So to start off, we've obviously got our 3 Kashtira Ironhorn. This is Unicorn. This is the best card in your deck. Special Summon Unicorn is still an insane play. We've got the 3 Fenrir, and the only other 3 of we play is the 3 Rise Arts. Not much to say here. These cards are absolutely insane, especially in the deck that they're meant to be played in, not just as an engine. They end up being extremely strong, extremely oppressive. Rise Heart is great at just extending through hand traps and just setting up your follow-up players. So I think the logic behind this deck is still the same as it was when the deck came out, where you're working towards follow-up, you're expecting your board to get cracked, and you're playing on the crackback to kill them, especially going first. Going second, it's just oppressing them with hand traps or breaking their boards, board breakers, and then killing them. So it's a very interesting deck. I'm obviously used to playing stun, I'm used to playing traps. This is more mid-range, and although it's definitely not combo, learning which combo lines to go in which situations that dodge which hand traps is very important for as simple and helmety as the deck can be. The last 2 names I play is, I play 1 Scareclaw, this is pretty much standard, and then I am playing the Ogre with the preparations. So this is actually my way of playing around Evenly and Nib, and I'll show it to you at the end of this video with a combo tutorial. So because this deck is pretty well known, I'm going to use up the time that I have just to show the bare bones basic combo that I was doing, as well as my siding pattern, which I thought was actually really well done. Thought about it quite a bit going into the meta decks and these huge combo boards that are unbreakable, and just how can we break them and establish our own board. But that's pretty much it for the monsters. Obviously the preparations, for those of you who don't know, is a summon from Banish. So under Shifter, this is probably one of the best cards in your deck, because all the materials you're using, if you're linking, end up getting banished, and then you have follow-up, infinite follow-up, because this is every turn. And then if a trap card is activated, you can banish, look at your opponent's hand and rip a card, which is surprisingly good against Labyrinth. It hasn't come up, haven't played against Labyrinth since I've been back from the YCS, but this card is cracked. Big Bang is terrible. You should not play Big Bang. More engine cards. We're playing the one Prosby, obviously. We're playing the one Land Forum, the terraforming, 3 pressured planets. At the YCS, I actually ended up taking this into a side event, and I had Spanish copies of the Pressure Planet Wraithsoth. You could have probably seen, but my Fenrirs and my Unicorns are actually in German, as well as the Land Forum. I literally picked up all these cards while I was at the YCS and just wanted to mess around in a side event after dropping from the main events. But these were in Spanish, and I went 4-2 in a regional style mega challenge, not knowing this effect to pop a card when Shangri-La uses its effect, which is really funny. If I had known this, maybe I could have done a lot better, but 4-2, first time playing the deck ever, not knowing what my cards did, I think it's pretty good. I think Shift is just a really good card. But yeah, the pop is actually insane. Obviously the effect to make everything gain is insane, and the search effect is crazy. You need to play max copies of this. You'll notice I am not playing Reinforcements of the Army for the Rise Hearts. I feel like it's just a way to lose, to roll a little bit harder. Like if you lead Reinforcement to bait something, like an Ash, which is more commonly played, and they roll you. If you've got Planet, if you've got Unicorn, if you've got Fenrir, it becomes a lot more difficult. So you have to like hard open Theosis or Birth to be able to play with just the Rise Hearts. But yeah, obviously 3 Birth, this is the most broken card in the deck, and then only 2 Theosis. It only came up once at locals, and at the YCS where I needed the 3rd, and that was because I was using them for their add effect more than the effect to summon. So I was Rise Hard banishing this, adding back like births and stuff, which is insane, by the way. But yeah, I don't think 3 is correct. The way I've got the deck built right now, the non-engine slots are crazy. Like I think they're really, really good, and I don't think it's worth cutting one for the 3rd Theosis. Plus with the Prosby, we technically have a 3rd copy of that, and 4th copies, I guess, of everything else. That is it for the engine portion of the deck. Now for the non-engine, there is something that's going to be missing that I'll actually explain. But yeah, let me just lay it out quickly. So it's 3 Shifter, 3 Ash, 3 Veiler, 2 Mourner, 2 Ogre, 3 Imperm, and then 2 Tactics. So you're obviously going to ask me, Eric, Future Knight, where are the Mulch Armies? Now, don't get me wrong, I do have access to both of the Mulch Armies. After watching a lot of the deck profiles that topped, especially of the more known or well-known players from the past weekends, especially like a deck profile from Ryan Yu, for instance, as well as Pack, I agree with them in the sense that I want every card in my hand to have an impact from the get-go immediately, rather than activating the Mulch Army card and then either them playing around it awkwardly, yes, to stop stop me from drawing, or just passing. Okay, and this deck is a little bit different in the sense that it can OTK if you Mulch Army them and they pass, but of course if they have their own interactions it becomes a little bit difficult. So my other logic was Shifter. If I shifted them as well as Mulch Army them, whichever one it is, right, 9 out of 10 times, if it's one of the meta decks or one of the combo crazy decks, they're just going to pass anyway. So I'm just looping my hand of 2 cards when that Mulch Army could be another hand trap that I can hold for their next turn, or if I have combo I can just finish them there, and if they interrupt me enough I then have more interaction pieces in my hand. So that was the logic there of not playing the Mulch Armies. There is definitely, I would say, a spot in the side for them that is warranted, but I thought for the main deck I'd rather just have the cards that I can use absolutely immediately. I suppose the only exception is Tactics, but I just think Tactics is such a broken card this format, you have to play it. The amount of times I saw 2 of this card in my hand is disgusting. I actually end up siding one out most times going first. Going second, I definitely keep it in. And then, of course, the other, maybe not elephant, but maybe mouse in the room, is the Veilers and Ogres conflicting with Shifter. Again, it's on that same logic that when you shifter them, they're probably just going to pass. You know, they're not going to end on something too significant or too oppressive that I can't play through it. And that's why the Veilers and the Ogres, then, if I have them in hand, I end up just holding them. There's other interactions, obviously, that play into Tactics a little bit more, where instead of just shotgunning this in draw phase, when you go main phase, if they normal summon, if they use an effect, you can chain Shifter, chain Veiler, which is pretty cool. Didn't come up, but it is an interaction worth knowing. Didn't see Ogre once at the YCS or at the locals that I've just won. Only saw Veiler once at this locals, and it did win me the game. I knew my opponent's entire hand, and I'd Ogred to see what he was going to draw into, and he was going to draw into a Lotus, a new Bell, and I had the Veiler in hand, so I just Veilered the Lotus as it at the board. But yeah, this is a really, really great lineup. Obviously, you can't play good cards like Bestials, you can't play good cards like Nibiru, because they conflict with you not controlling monsters to summon the Kashtiras. But I was really, really happy with this. Double Ashes in hand do suck. I'm thinking about maybe cutting this down to 2 and putting in like a third Mourner maybe. I do think Mourner is disgustingly underrated. This card is very, very strong. But yeah, so that is my non-engine, and it is a very, very clean 40 cards, and it's for siding purposes that it's 40, as well as obviously consistency, and we want to draw our guard card. I'm very glad I managed to pick up QCRs of these bad boys, or bad girls, I suppose. Moving on to the extra deck. Obviously, you got to play the honorary tokens. We play 2 Shangri Era. A lot of the decks that I've been topping only play 1. I like it for when you can get really, really greedy and you can go full combo. If you draw like, I don't know, Unicorn, Fenrir, Theosis, and Birth like already in hand, or one of the 2 spells, you can end on 2 of these plus a Fenrir, and then in the standby phase you can summon a Unicorn. Sometimes it even gets even crazier. If I draw like Scarecrow or whatever, I can end on 2 of these plus Ogre, Unicorn, and Fenrir, and then literally you just block zones like an absolute madman. But it doesn't come out too often, but it's also really good just to have a second card to make Zeus off of. So I think 2 is definitely correct. Speaking of, we play the Zeus, as well as his little brother or enemy, Typhon. Planking this on after you've done your full combo, end board going second, is just really strong. Other XYZs, we're playing the Dark Arm Dragon XYZ. Again, this one's in German. This card is MVP, probably the best card in the extra. You have to play the Big Eye, the Flare Metal, and the Draco Sack. Draco Sack is obviously great for outing Floodgates and for doing the Link plays, which we are playing. So we're playing the Tooling Spider, the Deco Talker, the Crystal, Golem, Heart, Deco Talker, and then the SP Little Knights. That's pretty much the standard. These last 2 cards are pretty flexible. You can play like the Sword Soul, Synchro, or you can play a variety of other links or other monsters, other cards. But I ended up playing IP as well as Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. This card, MVP of the entire extra deck. This deck post turn 1, so if you go first and they don't manage to clear your board and you have some like bodies just chilling, you can bring out so many monsters, like insane amounts of monsters. Like I'm pretty sure I've made this plus the Dad Dark Armed XYZ, and then also made a Zeus. Like this card is cracked. A Chaos Angel made with Light and Dark is like unoutable in this deck. It's really difficult to out. So this is just an answer to that. And because the Chaos Angel doesn't do anything, it just sits. They can't really interact with you while you're playing, and then you can just get the bodies up and then just Underworld Goddess it. I was initially playing, instead of the Flare Metal, I was playing Flare Metal on the side. I was playing Closed Moon instead, so that I could get 2 bodies off with Underworld Goddess. But I didn't want to telegraph the fact that I was trying to do a Goddess play, because then they would use their interactions to try and stop that. And then obviously K-Cent was unaffected by it, so it didn't matter in the first place. So I'd rather just use the 2 bodies to make up the 4 effect monsters. So I just put the Red Flare Metal back in, because my mate Herbert told me that, you know, if you're attacking them and leaving them on very little life, just ending on this stops them because they can't play, which I thought was really, really neat. It didn't come up. It could have come up once against a Ubal player, but decided to play more safely and end like on a Zeus and a Fenrir instead of ending on this, just because I didn't want him to come back in any way, shape or form. That's it for the extra deck, 15 cards. And then the side deck is, actually, it's a bit boring, but it's super optimized for like meta and my locals. So it's 3 sphere modes. This is really funny. This was Lava Golem, and then I realized Lava Golem into the Centurion board does nothing because it's a level 8. So they just summon their level 4 and they can make 12s anyway in my turn, which is terrible. So this isn't great against them because sometimes they're not even ending on 3 cards, but sometimes they'll also shotgun in the main phase. Like I'll just do any other interaction and then they'll shotgun the Blazar, and then you can just sphere mode them then. But yeah, this came up against a Ubal player without this. I would have lost. He made the new Azarina, the negate, the new engine they're playing in Snake Eyes. He made that negate, he made Desiree, and he made Ferudos. So it was like 10. It was the 10, it was Desiree, and so it's 3 Omnis basically, right? If I was playing Lava Golem, I couldn't sphere mode. I couldn't get rid of his whole board, and I had my second board breaker evenly in hand. So basically, I sphere moded him and then evenly him, and he had no follow-up because he kept the circles of the Sacred Beast. But if I had Lava Golem, literally any one of those 3 cards negates the evenly. So it becomes pointless. So I'm very, very glad I put in the sphere modes. I actually didn't side it in against Aiden, the Centurion player, just because I knew he wouldn't be ending on 3. I think he plays very conservatively, which is good. The other thing that he could have done is, he knew I was on Lava Golems the night before when we were testing. Shout out Don, shout out Kieran, shout out Herb, who was absent. But yeah, we were testing the night before and he knew I was on Lava Golem. So he was either going to do 2 things. He was either going to end on 1 monster, or he was going to end on a lot more monsters to play around the sphere mode. But I just, didn't take that gamble and put these in. I didn't want dead cards in my hand. The other board breaker style card we have is Dark Hole. This is very much local specific. The week before I was supposed to come second. I went 2-2 and then I did a massive misplay in my game 3 against Mimigul. That deck hates Kashtira because they give you a monster. That's it. So having a Dark Hole just to clear their end and my end, just to make it open to summon my monsters, is huge. But also against silly stuff like Branded, like if you have so many hand traps, if you interact with Branded correctly, they can't puppet you, but they can give you a monster. Again, Dark Hole just clears that for you, which is pretty good. So all of these go in against the very big meta decks, so like the Snake Eyes, the Ubals, sometimes Centurion, but for the most part, these also all going against Centurion. You can bait like 1 Blaze on negates, and then you can evenly them, kill their follow-up. So these are exceptional cards. I wouldn't change a single one. Just a note, like I said, I do have access to the Malchamis. I do think maybe the Dark Hole would be replaced with either of the Malchamis of your choice, going into a more standardized meta locals. But obviously in my locals it's a bit iffy, so I went with the Dark Hole. Another thing, I don't have thrusts, full disclosure. I don't know if I would play thrusts over just having the Dark Holes. There was a match where I drew 2 Dark Holes, and if I hadn't drawn both, I would have lost that game. So, kind of weird. But again, it's up to your discretion. Then for going first, it's 3 judgments. You need this for the evenly stop, and then 3 barriers. This is just for Tempai, it's for Branded, it's for just your generic stuff. I was thinking about playing DDG to stop more of the meta stuff. I decided against it just based on the fact that we play Shift already and a lot of our cards banish already. So yeah, that was my logic. That's pretty much it for siding patterns. I'll give you a little quick rundown. So if I am going second into pretty much any deck. I'll almost always side out the cards that conflict with Shifter if, you know, they're suboptimal in the matchup, as well as the one terraforming, the preparations, the ogre, and one rise heart. So quite a significant shift of, you know, getting rid of engine cards. The only real engine card you're getting rid of is terraforming and the rise. These two are just obviously additional cards that you're playing as extenders. So this is exactly 9 cards. So if I'm going second, I'll always take out these 9 cards and I will put in these 9 cards. So like I said, for the most part that's always happening against especially the big Wombo combo decks. Even against Dino I did this exact side just because Misk turns off Vela. Ogre against Lost World is decent but not great. These of course going second. This is huge, but this does nothing. This is susceptible to a lot of negation, disruption, and then terraforming is just literally the one consistency hit we're taking to break pretty much any board. So that's what I'll do going second. Going first, however, I'll do the exact same side, take out the ones that conflict with Shifter, especially if they're subpar. Obviously this is interchangeable with like other stuff. You can take out the Mourners, you can take out the Ashes, but of course you need to keep a decent amount of engine in. This all goes back in for going first, and then the only card we take out, again this is based on the assumption that Barrier is good into the matchup, and these 6 go in. If Barrier is terrible into the matchup, it really is a toss-up. I can either take out these 3 or these 3. Either way, I'm not taking out any engine going first, because going first you need to see engine just to play. And yeah, that's pretty much the siding pattern. Again, of course, this is matchup specific and what's good into what, but for the most part, I sided like this every single match at the YCS and at the locals. Then for the combo, the bread and butter, which I'm quite lucky to have gotten into, but this is, I suppose this is the most comfortable combo, where, you know, it's a 3-card combo, sure, but you're playing a 40-card deck with a lot of engine. But these 3 cards together is probably what makes your best board, at least in my opinion, other than obviously the link climb. As soon as you shifter, you can't do the link climb, which I think is okay, you know, because you've shifted them. Again, this can be field spells. Yeah, so the way that this goes is you obviously shifter them, you special your unicorn, and you add birth. You birth, normal summon Fenrir, normal summon Fenrir, Fenrir effect, add rise, special rise, rise effect, banish, ogre, birth again, special ogre, ogre effect, add preparations. So this is under 4. Obviously if they clear anything you're still under shifter, so you can bring it back with prep, so there's no issues there. However, if you want to be a little bit greedy, I did this play sort of just on vibes alone. If I knew or felt like they had nerve, I just left it here. Against Aiden in game 3, I actually left it like this. He ended up drawing it evenly, but he did have a nib in hand, so if I overextend it like I'm about to now, it ends up being really gross. I think the best way of determining if you want to overextend into nib is if you have the field spell. If you have the field spell live, you definitely want to overextend, because Shangri-La pop, or the field spell pop rather, is so much more advantage on top of your board already, that I think you kind of just have to. From here, if you are playing into nib, you definitely, it doesn't actually matter which way you go. However, if you're playing into evenly, or you know that they're post side on evenly, you overlay into Shangri-La using the Fenrir. Now, I know this is quote unquote a little bit controversial, because that means during standby phase when you go effect to summon, they can ash it, they can implement it, and then you don't have a Fenrir to disrupt, which is your best disruption. However, if you know they're on evenly, or you're on that feeling that they're on evenly, this is the better play, and I'll explain why. So you go effect in standby, they let it resolve because they have it evenly, so they're not really worried. When they evenly you, okay, you keep preparations, and I'll tell you why. you banish the rest of these face down, including the Shangri-La. Now, this is of course, like I said, under shifter. So this is the optimal way of playing around evenly. These two monsters, because they were under Shangri-La, do not get banished face down. They get banished face up. So, after the evenly is resolved in main phase 2, you can preparations, and then you can summon back a Fenrir, and then you at least have a singular disruption as well as follow-up. When they pass back to you, preparations can also reborn your Rise Heart, and then you can keep playing from there, which I think is extremely good follow-up for one card through probably the best board breaker in the game. And then of course with Nib, it's very similar. Once they nib you, everything's under shifter, so it'll all be banished face up, so it didn't matter anyway. You probably always bring back the Fenrir off the preparations, and you'll have the birth for the next turn, so you just kill them like crackback. But that is pretty much the deck profile, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed. I'm having a lot of fun with this deck. I think it's really, really strong. I think it's really, really good mid-range, and it's really good into the meta. Again, the not playing the Molchamis is definitely because of a budget perspective, but it's also from a theory crafting perspective, and just seeing, you know, how other players are managing to play around the, you know, having to buy the super expensive card. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Obviously, huge shout outs to our locals that hosted these events, AI Fest. Once again, super proud to be one of Aria's champions. And yeah, shout outs to the boys for all the testing: Don, Herbert, Kieran, Aiden. If I'm missing anyone, I apologize. Jandre, who's been a bit absent, but yeah, shout out to all the boys. And yeah, I guess I will catch you on the next one. Future Knight, signing out.